A Dutch cruise ship sits anchored off the coast of West Africa. On board, 147 passengers and crew, 23 nationalities, mostly elderly tourists, bird watchers, polar enthusiasts, people who paid thousands of dollars to see Antarctica. 3 of them are now dead. A virus moved through the cabins faster than the world could respond. Cape Verde could not handle them. Spain's regional government said no. The ship was, for a time, a floating quarantine no nation wanted to receive. This is the story of the MV Hondius. But it is also a story about something much bigger. It is a story about what we did not learn from the last pandemic. The MV Hondius is a Dutch-flagged expedition cruise ship operated by Oceanwide Expeditions. It carries up to 196 passengers, served by a crew of 72, most of them Filipino. It is built for ice, for the kind of voyage where you watch penguins from the deck and count seabirds at 3 in the morning. On April 1st, 2026, the Hondius left Ushuaia, Argentina, the southernmost city on Earth. The plan was Antarctica, then a long journey north through the loneliest islands of the South Atlantic, St. Helena, Ascension, eventually Cape Verde. There were 147 souls on board, passengers from Spain, the United Kingdom, the United States, the crew mostly from the Philippines. According to Argentine authorities, no one on board was showing symptoms when the ship sailed. But 2 passengers, a Dutch couple, had been traveling South America for 4 months before they boarded. From November of 2025 through the end of March 2026, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, the Argentine Health Ministry has now published their movements. Investigators believe they were the index cases, and they believe the virus came from somewhere very specific. A landfill in southern Argentina, a bird-watching detour, a place full of rats. The trip of a lifetime had already become something else. Hantavirus is not new. It is not engineered. It is not mysterious. It is a family of viruses carried by rodents, mice, rats. The infection passes to humans through urine, feces, and saliva, usually inhaled as aerosolized particles when contaminated dust is disturbed. There are 2 main forms of the disease. In Asia and Europe, hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome. In the Americas, Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. The strain on board the MV Hondius is called the Andes virus. According to the World Health Organization, it is found in southern Argentina and Chile. It causes a severe lung disease. Mortality rates run between 30 and 60%. There is no cure. There is no vaccine. And the Andes strain has one feature that makes it unique among hantaviruses. In extremely rare cases, and only in close, prolonged contact, it can pass from person to person. That is why the world is paying attention. But scientists are not panicking, and they want to be clear about why. The CDC, the WHO, the UK Health Security Agency, and infectious disease researchers at institutions, including Johns Hopkins and Harvard, have all said the same thing in the past week. The risk to the global public is low. Hantavirus's extreme lethality is paradoxically the reason it cannot become the next pandemic. It kills too quickly. It does not spread efficiently. A virus that disables its host before that host can infect others is not a virus that travels well. The Hondius is a tragedy. It is not the end of the world. This is what we know happened, day by day, April 1st. The MV Hondius departs Ushuaia. No symptoms reported. April 11th. A passenger dies on board. A Dutch man. The cause of death cannot be determined at sea. April 24th. The ship reaches St. Helena, a remote British territory in the South Atlantic. The man's body is removed. His wife disembarks. She is sick. The next day, she boards a flight to Johannesburg. She collapses on arrival. She dies on April 26th. April 27th. The ship is at Ascension Island. A British expedition guide is medically evacuated, flown to South Africa, admitted to intensive care. May 2nd. A German woman dies on board the ship. That same day, the WHO is formally notified. The United Kingdom's International Health Regulations focal point reports the cluster. Laboratory testing in South Africa confirms the first case. May 3rd, the Hondius docks in Praia, Cape Verde. May 6th, The strain is confirmed as Andes virus. Total cases reach 8, 3 laboratory confirmed, 5 suspected. A man who left the ship earlier is now hospitalized in Zurich. That same day, Fernando Clavijo, the regional president of the Canary Islands, says publicly the ship cannot dock in Tenerife. The WHO responds, Spain has a moral and legal obligation to assist these people, the WHO says. May 7th, 3 passengers are evacuated from the ship. 2 land in Amsterdam. 1 is forced to make an emergency stop in Gran Canaria, refused refueling permission in Morocco. The ship is now at sea, sailing towards Spain. It will take 3.5 days to arrive. Fernando Clavijo is the regional president of the Canary Islands. He governs an archipelago of just over 2 million people off the coast of Morocco. When the Spanish national government announced the Hondius would dock in Tenerife, Clavijo refused. I cannot allow it to enter the Canary Islands, he said. He demanded an emergency meeting with Spain's Prime Minister, Pedro Sánchez. He said the regional government had not been given enough information about the outbreak. He cited the experience of the COVID-19 pandemic. He cited the safety of his islanders. Many of those islanders agreed with him. The World Health Organization disagreed. Spain has a moral and legal obligation to assist these people. The WHO statement read, noting that several Spanish citizens were among the passengers. What followed was a 48-hour standoff between a regional government and an international health body. Between the politics of borders and the obligations of medicine, the Spanish National Health Ministry insisted the ship posed no threat to the public. The ministry said the WHO had assessed safe disembarkation could happen at Tenerife. Eventually and quietly, the position shifted. The ship is now sailing for Spain. Evacuation is scheduled to begin May 11th. But the lesson Clavijo's refusal taught is harder to undo. When the next ship comes, no one will have forgotten that the first answer was no. 30 passengers disembarked at St. Helena on April 24th. That is the figure released by Oceanwide Expeditions, the day the first body was removed, 2 weeks after the first death. Most boarded a single weekly flight from St. Helena to Johannesburg on April 25th. 88 people on that plane, 88 people now being traced. A French national was on that flight. He is being monitored. In Switzerland, a Dutch flight attendant who had contact with a confirmed case is being tested. If positive, she will be the first known person infected outside the ship itself. Health authorities across 4 continents are now involved. The CDC says it is monitoring 17 Americans on board. The UK Health Security Agency is tracking British passengers and their close contacts. The South African National Institute for Communicable Diseases is treating a critically ill British expedition guide. Argentina is hunting rats along the route the Dutch couple traveled. The WHO has cases or contacts identified in Cape Verde, the Netherlands, Spain, South Africa, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, and France, at minimum. This is the architecture of pandemic response. Laboratories, phone calls, flight manifests, quarantine hotels. And it is being deployed for an outbreak that, by every scientific measure, will not become a pandemic. The system works. The question is whether it would work if it had to. This is the part of the story that has nothing to do with rats. 5 years ago, the world watched a different ship, the Diamond Princess, off the coast of Japan, and learned that a respiratory virus on a cruise liner was a warning of what was coming. The world had time. The world did not act on it. Now with the Hondius, we have a smaller test. A virus that scientists agree is not a global threat. 147 people, 3 deaths, a diplomatic problem the size of a single ship, and the response has still been chaotic. A regional president refused entry against the advice of his own national government. A flight was denied refueling rights mid-evacuation. International institutions issued public statements pressuring sovereign nations. Local populations supported the closure of their own ports to sick foreigners. This is what we built after COVID. And this is what it looks like under the lightest possible stress test. When experts at the WHO say the risk is low, they mean the virus. They do not mean the system. The system is the part of the story you should be watching, because the system is what fails when the next outbreak isn't this one. The MV Hondius is still at sea. somewhere between Cape Verde and Tenerife. 140 passengers and crew still waiting to come ashore. One body of a German woman still on board. The world has not figured out how to balance protecting borders with helping the sick. It did not figure that out during COVID. It has not figured it out now. The next outbreak will be different. The next outbreak will be worse. And if the international system cannot coordinate over 150 stranded tourists carrying a virus that barely spreads, we should ask, very honestly, what happens when the real one comes?